Hi guys. Beautiful, isn't it? It's a beautiful afternoon, and it's actually a really beautiful backdrop for this video. This video is a farewell to my Tudor Black Bay GMT. And we can call it a review as well, because I've actually worn the watch for 3 years. The Tudor Black Bay, a watch that I've worn and loved for 3 years, and now it has to leave. And it has to leave not because I want it to leave, but because I just don't wear it. And I have other watches that came into my collection that just put the Tudor aside one step and another step, and then totally aside, and it's now just gathering dust in my locker, and I have no reason keeping it. Sometimes in life I contemplate and I think of I'm really happy with my life. I love my family, I like my job, I'm happy and content. I'm not a rich dude, but still I know that there are a lot of people out there that will never afford having an entry luxury watch on their wrist. There are a lot of people out there starving, etc. I know I'm happy with my situation and thankful for everything that I have. But sometimes, just sometimes, I wish that I just had a little bit more. I wish that I didn't have to sell watches to buy other watches. And the Tudor Black Bay GMT is actually the watch that made me think about that the most. Because even though it just sits in my locker, I wish I could have kept it, because it's such a beautiful watch, and I've really loved it for 3 years now. And but it's just sitting there. And since I bought the Rolex GMT Master 2 and then the Omega Speedmaster came into the collection, it just has to go. There is no reason for me keeping it anymore, because I'm not wearing it, and it just has to go. But before it goes, I'm gonna show you why I love it, why I've loved it for 3 years. So let's just do that. Let's talk about the watch. It's really cold outside here in Sweden, and I love wearing my cap, but I'm freezing, my ears are freezing, so I just had to put the hoodie up. This is the another cap from Coastal Wear. As you can see, it's Cook. I think it's Captain Cook right there on a surfing board, and he's a skeleton because he hasn't eaten for a while. But let's flip the camera, take a look at the Tudor Black Bay one last time, and say our farewells. How did I end up with a Tudor? I mean, when I was a kid growing up, Tudor were I think they were car batteries. Some for some reason I'm thinking about a battery when I'm thinking about the name Tudor. And yeah, I knew that it was some kind of English dynasty of the Tudors. But how did I come across Tudor, and how did one end up in my collection? Well, actually, it all started with the search for something else. The search for the perfect Pepsi GMT. Rolex just released their Pepsi in ceramic, and I thought that was a beautiful, beautiful watch. And I think this was back in 2018. And I started searching for I couldn't afford the Rolex GMT Master 2 at that point. So I started searching for something else, and I actually went to a city nearby. I was gonna try out the Tag Heuer Aqua Racer, and then the shop owner actually had one of the new Pepsis on his wrist, and we talked for a while, and I tried it on. And since I was coming from big watches like 43, 44 millimeter watches, I thought that the Rolex Pepsi GMT was just too big for me, too small. It's not too big, too small for me. I tried it on my 20 centimeter gorilla wrist, and I found it to, since I was accustomed to large watches, I just found it to be too small. So I immediately just put away the thought of ever owning a Rolex GMT Master 2 because it was too small, and I started searching for something else. The best Pepsi that I could afford that was not too small. It started with Seiko. I plowed through a lot of Seikos with the red and blue combination. I had an Invicta. I bought a Christopher Ward. And then somehow I came across the Tag Heuer Aqua Racer. And then, you know, when you start digging around, you'll usually start digging around on the internet, and you usually come across videos on YouTube. And then I came across a review of the Tudor Black Bay GMT. People were praising it. It was a fantastic looking watch with a vintage inspired look. It was 41 millimeters, and I was hesitating because I thought it might be too small for me as well. But I ordered it. I actually bought it simultaneously with the Tag Heuer Aqua Racer, and I actually made a video. That was actually my first video in full English. I was a little nervous, but I did the comparison between those two watches. And I chose the Tudor. I chose to keep the Tudor, and I sold my Tag Heuer Aqua Racer. And that's the way the Tudor came into my collection. Because before that, as I said, I thought it was a car battery or an English royal family. I didn't know anything about the watch brand or about the connection with Rolex. Rolex's little brother. That didn't matter to me when buying the Tudor, because I was just looking for the perfect Pepsi GMT, and that became the Tudor at the moment. And actually, the Tudor also became the bridge for me to start liking smaller watches, and actually the Tudor Black Bay GMT became the bridge for me to finally owning the Rolex GMT Master 2, and to finally accepting that smaller watches are actually beautiful, even on gorilla wrists. That's the story about how the Tudor came into my collection, and now I'm going to tell you why it has to leave. I hear ya. Here's the box. This is what the unboxing looked like when I unboxed this beauty 3 years ago. You can check my video if you want that, but that wasn't a video just about the Tudor, because it was a video comparing the Tudor and the Tag Heuer. So I want to show you this one more time, since you crave it so much. This is the Tudor box. It actually comes with a white little slipper. I have that in my safety box, but this is what the box looks like, and this is how the watch is presented inside. Nothing fancy. We have this soft fabric on the inside. We have the watch resting on a pillow right there. And then we have some papers underneath. We have a little hidden compartment there for the spare links. And then we have some warranty cards. And when you take the watch off the pillow, it looks like this. Black pillow, perfectly fine. This is just as when you unbox a Rolex. It's nothing special. It's perfectly fine, but it doesn't give you that. I mean, it's not a Omega Speedmaster huge box with a lot of extras and a lot of history about the brand. It's a simple box, and they've actually concentrated on giving you value inside of the watch. And here it is, the Tudor Black Bay GMT. I haven't worn it for a while, so as you can see, it has stopped. So we're gonna give it a little spin. Buttery smooth. So, since this is our last farewell, I think we should talk about some pros and some cons with this watch that I have experienced with my 3 years of wearing it. And we're gonna start with the negatives. And I actually don't have a lot of negatives to say about this fantastic watch. I was really searching my brain, trying to stretch as far as I could with my opinions, but I have very few things to say, and the things that I have to say are just possibly negative things. So let's cut to the chase and let's tell you what they are. Possibly one negative thing is the thickness. I have always said, and I have viewed my opinion on a bunch of forums, I do not think that the watch is too thick. I think it wears comfortably. I think it hugs my 20 centimeter wrist perfectly good. I have never had any trouble with the thickness of the Tudor Black Bay GMT. But I still say it as a possible negative aspect because, sure, it could have been slimmer. I mean, there are GMT watches that are 10.5 millimeters thick, and I wouldn't mind having the watch thinner. It's 15 millimeters thick, and even though I do not think that it feels thick on my wrist, I actually, sure, why not make it thinner? If it was 12.5 millimeters, even 13 millimeters thick, that would actually be better, because thinner is better. It feels more comfortable. It feels even less like wearing nothing on your wrist. This is a substantial watch, and it actually, I mean, it's not a big watch, but you feel the presence of it on your wrist in the same way that I feel my Squale Tropic GMT on my wrist. They have a presence on wrist, and the thickness contributes to that. I don't think it's too thick, but sure, if I was offered a version that was thinner, yeah, I would have bought that one instead. Another possible negative is the date issue. I'm into 3 years of owning this piece now, and I haven't had a problem with the date issue at all. And I don't actually think, I'm not going to say that because I'm going to jinx it, but no problems with the date issue on my example. But I have read the rumors, and I have read the threads that people have experienced a lot of this issue, and some people, I guess, lucked out and just were lucky enough to not get the issue, and some people were not that lucky and they had the issue. Tudor prolonged their warranty. I think they prolonged it from 2 years to 3 years because of the issue, and they're happy to change the movement if it happens to you. But possibly if you had the date changing issue, the date getting stuck, then yes, that would be a con with the Tudor Black Bay GMT. But since I haven't had that particular issue with my example, I cannot say that it's a con on my watch because I haven't experienced it. So now to the good part. Now to the pros. And one pro, when I look at this watch, one pro that I immediately think of is that vintage inspired look. I really love that this watch has no crown guards, that it has that big crown that is so easy to manipulate, so easy to screw out and set the time. give it some juice, give it some, just, I mean, it's so nice to operate this crown. It goes in without any effort at all. And just the muted blue, the muted red on that bezel insert, that aluminum bezel insert, just by choosing aluminum, they actually gave the watch even more of a vintage inspired look. I really love even the rivets on the bracelet, also giving it that vintage inspired touch. So yeah, the vintage inspired look is a big pro for me. Pro number 2 is the feel of the watch. This is one smooth watch on your wrist. I mean, when I picked it out the first time, they always talk about Rolex using 904L steel, and that kind of steel is smoother on the touch, and you can actually feel the difference between that steel and the 316L steel. And this watch actually feels like a 904L steel watch. It's smooth, it's buttery smooth. I think they've done a stellar job with the finishing on this one. It feels so perfectly finished, so smooth to the touch, no sharp edges. Wherever you might search for them, there are no sharp edges to be found on this watch whatsoever. So yeah, the feel of the watch is certainly one big pro. Pro number 3 is the color of the bezel. I talked about it before, but that muted, actually you can see it in some lights, it actually gives you a black look, and then in some lights you can see that deep navy blue color and that burgundy red. Perfect, spot on with the coloring. And I'm actually glad that the Rolex GMT went another way. They went with a little more purplish blue on the blue and a little more ox blood red with the red. This is a more vintage, true to a vintage watch, and it looks really good. And the last but not least, the 4th pro of the Tudor Black Bay GMT has to be the bracelet. I mean, this is one of the best bracelets that I have ever had the opportunity to wear on my wrist. And I really love the clasp, this is what I love about watches, and why I can never wear a watch on a NATO or a leather strap if it doesn't come on that NATO and that leather strap. It's because of the little detail here where they have incorporated the Tudor shield in the locking mechanism right there, and when they also prolonged the clasp here, also looking like the Tudor shield. That little touch of detail just elevates the watch from other watches. And I love the rivets. They give it a special look. And yeah, the bracelet is just really nice on your wrist. Perfect bracelet in my eyes. One thing that I obviously could have wished for on this bracelet is, of course, if we had a quick adjust system. We only have 3 holes for micro adjustment right there, and if they had a quick adjust system, this bracelet would be a 10 out of 10, but it still comes onto my pro list. I hear ya all the way from there through the internet right into my frontal lobe. You want to see some specifications. You want to see me talk about the specifications of the Tudor Black Bay GMT, even though you've probably heard them a bunch of times. Okay, here we go. Okay. You might as well include the specifications of the watch in the video, because you're including everything else. This is like a farewell review. So let's talk about the specification. The watch is entirely made of stainless steel. The movement inside this Tudor is the in-house MT5652 with the true GMT function. It has a 70 hours power reserve, and it's actually COSC certified, which actually means it gives you -4 to +6 seconds a day of accuracy. The diameter is 41 millimeters. Thickness is 15 millimeters. Lug width is 22 millimeters. The lug to lug is 50 millimeters. We have a double domed sapphire crystal. Don't know if it has any AR coating. Aluminum bezel insert. It's actually 48 clicks. bi-directional bezel. We have a water resistance of 200 meters, and we have a warranty of 3 years. And then let's go to the loom. Here we go. Loom on the Tudor Black Bay GMT. One word: perfect. Evenly applied, shines bright like a diamond, and actually gives you a legibility all into the small hours of the night. I'm really happy with the loom on the Tudor. As you can see, those legible snowflake hands, even from afar away, you can easily spot what the time is. I'm so happy with the loom on this one, and so happy that it actually lasts you all night. Not that I'm checking for the time in the middle of the night. I usually use my phone for that. But as you can see, it's really legible. It's really nicely applied, and it's almost perfect. I could have wished if those hour markers were a tad bigger, it would actually rise the loom up to another level. But in line with the vintage look of the watch, they made the hour markers quite small, and it's perfect for what it is. Perfectly applied, perfectly good. Super happy with the loom on the Tudor. Okay, now I know what you're thinking. It's a perfect watch. You really love the watch. It has great specs. It has served you perfectly for 3 years now. What's the problem? Why not just keep it and pass it on to one of your sons or both of them when you die, and just make it your once in a lifetime watch that you keep forever? Well, actually, there are 2 reasons that the Tudor Black Bay has to leave. And the first reason came into my life 2 years ago. It's the Rolex GMT Master 2. As I said before, the Tudor actually gave me a segue into possibly thinking about finally buying the Rolex GMT Master 2, because before the Tudor I thought that watches below 42, maybe 43 millimeters, but below that 43, 42 millimeters were too small. But then the Tudor came along and it opened up a world of possibilities to me, and then I finally pulled the trigger on the Rolex GMT Master 2. And this video is not about the Rolex GMT Master 2, but it has to come into the video because this was my first reason where I started thinking about getting rid of the Tudor, because the Rolex, every time I could wear a watch on my wrist, and if I wanted the blue and red combination, the GMT Pepsi style, I would go for the Rolex. The Tudor started spending more and more time in my safety box, and the Rolex started really taking the time on my wrist altogether. So the Tudor started to fade away even as I purchased the Rolex. But then reason number 2 came into my life, and it actually came into my life this summer, just a couple of months ago, and it was the new Omega Speedmaster. I've always wanted to own an Omega Speedmaster because I cannot think of a more iconic watch than this watch. It's a beauty. It's a stunning watch. This is the sapphire sandwich, by the way, with the open case back right there. And it's not set, as you can see, because I haven't worn it for a while. But this summer I actually decided to pull the trigger on it, and I haven't regretted my decision since, because I'm in love with this watch. It's a totally different watch. It's a chronograph. Those are GMTs, but it gives me a totally different look with the black and white, no other colors. It goes really well with my tattoos on my arms because I have a lot of colors there, and this is just plain black and white, nothing more. Looks great, feels great, a little sharp, but I'm gonna talk about that in the review of this watch. So when I bought this one, reason number 2, the Tudor started to be even less of an option for me. I mean, first of all, the Rolex came in, started taking all the wrist time. Then the Omega came in and started taking even more of my wrist time, and the Tudor just was sitting there in my safe, not being used. You know, like a child that you're not giving enough attention to. That's a horrible way to put it. But it's I started feeling sad for the watch, and somehow I started feeling that maybe someone can appreciate it more than I do, even though I love it, but still give it the time and attention that it really deserves, because it's a stunning and beautiful watch. It can easily, I could easily see myself having a collection with these 3 watches and 1 beater, because I'm not wearing any of these on my work. These 3 watches, even though both of them are GMT and Pepsis, would be a perfect collection for me. I think I would be set. I would be done collecting watches. But as I'm always saying, I'm not a rich guy. I bought the Moon watch. I took a substantial portion of my savings to buy that watch. I have to fill that portion, so the Tudor has to go. And those 2 guys are the main reasons for this watch's departure. That's it, guys. That's the way too long farewell video to the Tudor Black Bay GMT. And it's been a really good ride. It's been 3 years of a watch on your wrist that actually performs perfectly every day that you wear it, that never disappoints you, always keeps perfectly good time, feels like a pleasure on the wrist. And that's what you expect when buying a little more expensive watch. You don't want to put down the money, buy a watch for that kind of money, and for it to fail you and disappoint you. And the Tudor has never done that. It's been a perfect watch, a perfect companion for 3 years, and now it has to go for the reasons that I mentioned in the video. Sure, I wish if I had all the money in the world, I wish I could keep it, and it's actually the one watch that I actually would like to keep the most. But the reality is not that, and I actually just like the Omega Speedmaster and the Rolex that little bit more, so I'm keeping them and selling the Tudor. It is what it is. It has to go for a reason, but maybe someday I'm gonna see it again. I don't know. I hope so. One good thing with Tudor as a brand is actually that when you're selling them, they actually keep their value pretty well. I mean, as a second-hand buyer, you're not going to be able to find a big deal when buying a used Tudor. But if you buy one from the AD that I did, you're actually going to be... it's going to be comfortable to know that when you decide to sell it, you're going to get a big portion of your money back. From my experience anyway. So that's it. I hope you liked the video. It was a long video, and I hope you stayed until the end, and I'm really glad if you did. I don't think I'm going to be able to put out a video next week, because in less than 18 hours I'm actually heading to the hospital with my wife. She's giving birth to our 3rd child, and it's the way I'm able to know that is because it's a planned, in Swedish we call it kejsarsnitt. I think it's cesareal in English. You know, when she's not giving birth naturally, they're taking it out with a knife and stuff. So anyway, in less than 18 hours I'm gonna have a 3rd kid, if everything goes well. Wish me luck. And next week maybe not a new video, because I'm gonna be having a baby on my arms, but I promise you in the following weeks I have a lot of videos in the pipeline, and I hope to be pushing them out really soon. But until then, my friends, hope you liked the video, and I hope to see you again as always. Bye bye.